Want to get started? Excellent. Okay, ministers, delegates, both in person and online, good morning and welcome to today's event. This is the culmination of a lot of work by a lot of people, so it's a really positive day where we're announcing the first round of successful projects from the 2023 Thematic Research Call run by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. For those that don't know me, my name is Karl Walsh. I'm the head of the research division in the department and I'll be moderating today's event. Before getting into the agenda, for those of you here in the room, just take note of where your nearest emergency exit is, phones on silent, and recall that the event is being live streamed and recorded. We have a fairly full agenda over the next hour, so we'll have opening remarks from Minister McConalogue shortly. We will then hear from the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in Northern Ireland, who are involved in the call with us. Then we will go through the 20 projects individually, and we'll have some closing remarks then by Minister of State Martin Heydon. After that, there'll be some opportunity for questions to the researchers if there are members of the media present, and then lunch will be available at the end. So that's the running order. So to formally open proceedings, please now welcome the Minister for Agriculture, Food and the Marine, Charlie McConalogue.
Thanks very much, Carol, and good morning, everyone. A pleasure to be with you here today, and to be alongside Minister of State Martin Heydon to announce this €24 million in research awards following what has been a very competitive thematic research call run by the department there earlier this year. And I want to welcome the coordinators of the projects that are being awarded funding today, the directors and the vice presidents for research from a range of institutes, as well as representatives from our co-funders as well. In particular, I'm pleased to welcome Paul Devine, Deputy Chief Scientist with the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in Northern Ireland, and I want to acknowledge DAERA for their continued involvement in our thematic research calls, providing support to research organisations in Northern Ireland and thus facilitating strong North-South collaboration. It goes without saying that research and innovation are fundamental to ensuring a viable, a sustainable and a resilient agri-food, forest and bioeconomy sector. If we want to future-proof our primary producers and our agri-food sector, we need to continue investing heavily in cutting-edge research. The work funded under our research calls is essential to equip farmers and foresters and the wider agri-food sector with the tools needed to improve their economic, environmental and social sustainability over the coming years. It's also pivotal to developing the next generation of cutting-edge technologies and innovations that will ensure we are globally attractive and competitive as a food island. And finally, the support is enormously important as well in educating and training a pipeline of highly skilled, highly motivated and well-rounded fourth level graduates that can go on then to take up a variety of roles, whether that be as scientists, as policymakers or in industry innovators or many other important roles. The 2023 thematic research call was developed to align closely with the Food Vision 2030 strategy and having an ambition to enable Ireland to become a world leader in sustainable food systems, and in particular to support its mission for an innovative, competitive and resilient agri-food sector driven by technology and talent. At a meeting of Food Vision's high-level implementation committee last week, I hear of the collective effort being made to progress this particular mission through a wide range of public research supports being made available from organisations such as my own department, also from Chuggas, Enterprise Ireland and others. The outputs from investment in research and innovation will be one of a number of tools at our disposal to successfully address great challenges such as those around climate change, agri-environmental sustainability and global food and nutrition security. We saw some excellent examples of this at the recent Agriculture and Climate Change Science into Action conference that my department hosted in recent weeks at the Aviva Stadium. Like many of the 500 delegates who were there that day, I was heartened to see the fruits of research funded under previous calls being presented to such a large audience. From animal breeding programs to feed and manure additives that show real potential to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases by up to 30%, to multi-species swards and clover pastures offering the potential to reduce nitrogen fertilizer by half. These are the type of groundbreaking innovations arising directly from our competitive research calls, which fulfil our public good obligations for enhanced sustainability. With this in mind, it gives me great pleasure to announce the 20 successful projects being awarded funding today from our 2023 research call, as they will build further on the types of progress we profiled at the climate conference a few weeks ago. The 21.3 million euro in funding being provided by my department, along with the 1.9 million euro of funding being co-funded from DAERA Northern Ireland, as well as the €500,000 euro co-funding from the Environmental Protection Agency, and alongside €425,000 as well of co-funding from the National Parks and Wildlife Service, combined to give a total funding call here of just over 24 million euro. Reflecting the 5 themes of the call, the projects which you will hear about shortly range from climate mitigation and adaptation to water quality, plant health, animal breeding, animal health and welfare, as well as organic production, food safety, forestry, value-added food innovations, mental health and well-being, support for the bioeconomy, and also valorization of co-products and more besides. I'm particularly pleased to see the level of interinstitutional collaboration as well as the multidisciplinary nature of the science involved. This is important in terms of ensuring synergy between research areas, bringing together a variety of expertise to tackle complex problems and making best use as well of the public resources that we're investing. I'm also encouraged too, particularly by the 48 postgraduate positions and the 62 contract research positions that will be created in the projects being funded today. Food Vision 2030 highlights the importance for the agri-food sector to have an optimum mix of diverse, skilled and appropriately trained talent. We know from speaking to our food, forest and agri-businesses, as well as those international companies that we're seeking to attract here, that having an available skilled workforce that can help drive on research and development is one of their highest priorities. Therefore, besides the important research outcomes that will come from the research, the education and the training of these 110 individuals, they will also serve to ensure the future sustainability of their sector in terms of the talent that they bring and will bring in the years ahead. So before concluding, everyone, I also want to just emphasize as well, as all of you know too well yourselves, the absolute importance of knowledge transfer and outreach. You'll have seen in our call documents that we placed particular emphasis on these areas, and the requirement to produce an impact statement as part of the research output is to ensure that measures are in place to maximise the impact of the research outcomes, while the knowledge transfer plan will help projects promote knowledge flows and strengthen the links between research and key stakeholders, while also facilitating greater dissemination, uptake and use of research at ground level. These aspects are hugely important in terms of public good research and the need to urgently adapt new technologies to meet the many challenges the sector is facing. And I would strongly encourage the coordinators here today and your institutes to commit strongly to these aspects. So finally, I would like to wish all the coordinators here today and your research teams every success in completing your projects. Thank you and well done for the massively important work you're doing. It's critical and has been critical over the years to putting us where we're at in terms of the agri-food sector we have, and it's going to be critical to making sure that we stay very much at the forefront of agri-food innovation in the years ahead, and making sure right across our agri-food sector as a result that it's thriving, that it's profitable and that it's top class. So thank you for all that you're doing. I look forward to hearing more about it today, and look forward particularly to seeing it stepped out and delivered upon and applied. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Minister. Thanks for those remarks. You've had a very busy schedule recently, so we're really happy that you could be here today. It's a strong endorsement of your support for the research that we're funding. So we'll move on, and next up we're going to have Paul Devine. Paul, as the Minister said, is the Deputy Chief Scientist with the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, Northern Ireland. We've had a long-standing collaboration with DAERA on research for many years, and their involvement in the call allows Northern Irish research institutes to partner with the Irish institutes on the projects. We also collaborate on the US-Ireland R&D partnerships. So it's a very deep collaboration, and Paul, you're very welcome, and the floor is yours for a few minutes.
Ministers, delegates, good morning. Delighted to be here today to represent DAERA at the launch of the 2023 Grant Awards. Firstly, I'd like to thank Karl for the invitation to join today's events and to say a few words. He and his team put in a tremendous amount of work into commissioning these projects and in organising the event that brings us here today. DAERA and DAFM have many of the same complex policy responsibilities, and for many years we have sought opportunities to work together to support north-south research collaboration in areas of shared strategic importance. As is the case for DAFM, research and evidence are vital policy tools used by DAERA to develop robust evidence-based policy. Evidence from research underpins policies and strategies which impacts across all sectors and is vital in order for us to meet our future economic, environmental and societal challenges. I'm particularly delighted that 5 of the 20 new projects announced today involve researchers from Northern Ireland partnering with researchers in the south. In total now, DAERA and DAFM will now have co-funded 34 projects over the last 5 commissioning rounds. Collaborative partnerships across jurisdictions bring together different perspectives, expertise and insights and add significant value to research. I'm looking forward to today's presentations, where we'll hear how researchers work across institutions to address increasingly complex scientific challenges. From a DAERA perspective, we're really now seeing the benefits of these projects coming through. And as Karl mentions, it's not just the collaboration in this call, but in the US-Ireland as well. So just in closing, just really want to reiterate that DAERA greatly values our collaborative co-funding partnership with DAFM, and we hope that this will continue to grow and develop in the years ahead. So as I hand back to Karl, just to say I'm really looking forward to hearing all of the leads from the projects presented here this morning. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you, Paul. And as you can hear, both Paul and myself are a bit croaky. We weren't out partying together. But anyway, well done, Paul, for getting through that. No more than myself, the voice isn't the best. And just on that, before I move on, like the Minister said, I also want to acknowledge the co-funding from the EPA and the National Parks and Wildlife Service. This collaboration is really important to us, and it shows good joined up collaboration across funding agencies. Right, so we'll now move on to the core of the event today, which is to hear from the 20 projects themselves. So I want to warmly welcome the coordinators and their project teams and the directors of research and vice presidents of research from the institutes that are here. The coordinators have been asked to speak for 2 minutes with one slide that briefly summarises their projects. So it's a tight schedule. I know you'll all stick to your 2 minutes. In the event that you don't, Catherine is here with a big sign that says "Time up." So please don't overrun because we are on a fairly tight schedule. The ministers are on a tight schedule, so we do want to try and finish on time. So there were 5 themes in the call, and we're going to start with theme 3 because some of the presenters here are under some time pressure as well. And in this theme, there were 6 successful projects, and the first of these will be presented by David MacHugh from UCD. So David, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks very much, Karl, and obviously thanks to DAFM for providing the funding for this project, and hopefully I'll be able to show you in 2 minutes what it's about. So essentially what we're doing is building on research work that we've been involved with for really the last decade or more, and really trying to use high dimensional omics data coupled with other types of data to generate new scientific knowledge about tuberculosis and the bacterium that causes tuberculosis, Mycobacterium bovis, develop new disease markers for TB, for bovine TB, and provide information that can inform genome-enabled breeding programs or biology-directed selection. To do this, we will integrate different types of data, including high-resolution genetic data, large-scale functional genomics data, and then other ancillary diagnostics data. And to do this using cutting-edge, state-of-the-art methods that involve network biology approaches. We will also use machine learning, artificial intelligence to pinpoint the most appropriate biomarkers from peripheral blood to augment existing diagnostics, including the skin test and the gamma interferon, the interferon gamma release assay. And then we will also integrate all of these data together with existing genome-wide association study data generated by Chagos and the ICBF, which allows us to reconstruct the genetic architecture of host resilience traits to this disease. So the work will involve collaboration with the University of Edinburgh, the Roslin Institute, who are world leaders in the application of genomic technologies in livestock. And it also has a One Health aspect because the bacterium that causes human tuberculosis is a very close evolutionary relative of the bacterium that causes bovine TB. And this project will also inform what we can do about human TB. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Excellent, very well done on time. So next up is Sean Fair from the University of Limerick.
Okay, so thanks, Karl. My projects are projects on developing semen technology to improve the sustainability of the national herd, or hetero-bull. It's a collaboration between myself, the University of Limerick, Chagos, ICBF, and University College Dublin, with some of the main cattle AI centres in Ireland and sex technologies in the US as well. So the overall project aim is to assess the degree which heterospermic semen impacts pregnancy rates and paternity bias in lactating dairy cows. So genetic improvement is one of the main mitigations, or one of the mitigation strategies to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and this project feeds into that overall objective. So heterospermic semen is very simply the mixing of semen from multiple bulls or multiple males into the one semen straw. It's the norm in the pig industry. And legislation changed here in 2021, which allows it to be applied here in Ireland. There's anecdotal evidence that it improves fertility, but that's only anecdotal. And the objective of our project is to test that hypothesis. We'll come at that in a number of ways. In terms of, first of all, we'll assess how sperm behave in vitro using functional and molecular assays. We'll study the microRNA profiles within exosomes. We have some data to suggest that there's the molecular content of the exosomes within semen is interacting with sperm. And then we'll perform field fertility trials to assess pregnancy rates and paternity bias. The genomics program allows us as well. Timing is important here because it allows us to determine paternity of calves, even though semen is mixed in the one straw. And also we will assess through the use of synchronization studies if, for example, heterospermic semen is more appropriate for just once a day AI. And we'll do that both with conventional and sex-sorted semen, so there's advantages from both sides. So again, I'd like to acknowledge staff from the funding, for funding, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. And Finola Leonard from UCD. Finola, you're welcome. Next.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you indeed to DAFM and DAERA for the funding for this all-island project on transdisciplinary interventions to control salmonella in Irish pig farms. So why do we need this project? We actually have made some progress on control of salmonella, which is a major public health issue at abattoir level, but both in Ireland and elsewhere around the world, it has proven difficult to make progress on farm. And this is because it's a very multifactorial multifactorial issue and project. So we have 3 schools within the University College Dublin. We have AFBI and we have Teagasc as the main research performing organisations, and we also have partners in the Pig Health Check programme of Animal Health Ireland and the National Reference Lab for Salmonella here in Backweston. So we are trying to address this problem in an all stakeholder format. So we're going to engage all the stakeholders with salmonella control, and we're using a behavioural science approach which we haven't done before. So we are going to build on a lot of knowledge that we know already about on-farm controls, but we need the behavioural scientists to help us, and we need to do a farm-specific approach which we have not done before. So we're going to do individual farm risk assessments with the farmer, vet, the advisor, and all other stakeholders, because we want to co-create farm-specific control interventions with the farmer. So not one size fits all, because we know now that one size doesn't fit all. So we want to create these farm-specific control interventions. And we're going to monitor the farmer experiences throughout the project using the help of our behavioural scientist partners. And we're going to look at the effect of these interventions on other diseases as well, because that's what interests the farmers, because they want to control more than just salmonella. And we want to look also at the other related public health issue of antimicrobial resistance in the pig. We will define the cost benefit of implementation of these interventions using an existing programme in Teagasc, and we want to develop a roadmap with the help of those farmers that participate in the project to scale up the interventions to all commercial pig producers in Ireland, across the whole island. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Finola. Kevin Kilcline from Teagasc. Kevin, you're next.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Carol, for the invitation to today's event. My name is Kevin Kilcline. I'm a research economist in the Agri-Con and Farm Service Department in Teagasc, Athenry, and I'm the coordinator of the GRO-FarmS project. So GRO-FarmS represents collaborative investment in organic farming research between Teagasc, UCD, and the Department of Agriculture. Currently, there's a growing emphasis on the role of organic farming and food production in supporting sustainable systems, sustainable food systems with high levels of high environmental animal welfare standards. And that's reflected in the current Common Agriculture Policy Programme and ambitious targets set out in the Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategies. Indeed, in Ireland, we have ambitious targets to grow organic food production, and in the last year alone, we have seen a doubling of the area dedicated to organic farming, with entry of over 2,000 farmers in the organic farming scheme. The GRO-FarmS project aims to deliver the scientific research that is now required to support evidence-based organic farming adoption and best practice. The GRO-FarmS project is designed around 3 core work packages, scientific work packages. Dr. Philip Creighton, a sheep enterprise leader in Teagasc, will, along with colleagues in Teagasc and collaborators in UCD, Professor Tommy Boland, develop research trials in Teagasc, Athenry, looking at, I suppose, developing finishing options and management strategies for organic hill and lowland lamb, taking account of economic performance, animal performance, and environmental impact. A beef enterprise leader, Dr. Paul Crossan, will along with research colleagues in Teagasc, including Professor David Wall in Johnstown Castle, and UCD collaborator Dr. Alan Kelly, develop a research farm in Kildavin, a beef finishing farm in Kildavin. Research trials in Kildavin will look to develop efficient production blueprints for organic beef finishing systems conforming to organic standards. And my colleague in the Agri-Con department, Professor Mary Ryan, will develop a cross-cutting research work package which looks to develop the Teagasc National Farm Survey to include a sample of our organic farms. and this will be key in providing in-depth socioeconomic and environmental sustainability benchmarking data. The GRO-FarmS project has ambitious dissemination plans, and a dedicated work package will be led by organic specialist Joe Kelleher. I would like to thank the Department of Agriculture for supporting the project, and to my colleagues in Teagasc and UCD for successfully developing the research proposal, and I look forward to working with them on the project in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. The second last project in this team is from Tomás Russell in UCD. So, Tomás.
Thanks very much, Martin. So our project is called Farming Minds, and it's developing evidence-based interventions to enhance farmer mental health. And it's a collaboration with the UCD Agri-Mental Health Research Team, which is colleagues from the UCD School of Psychology and the School of Agriculture and Food Science, and the Department of Science and Health in situ. So it's in the context of evidence that shows farmers are suffering with their mental health and also are at a high risk of suicide. So within our project, what we hope to do is to develop an evidence-based intervention for prevention and early intervention of farmer stress, mental health and resilience. We hope as well to test the feasibility and effectiveness of the intervention, co-facilitated by advisors and psychologists through discussion groups, working with the advisory services, to examine the mechanism for change and key areas that need to be targeted to support farmer mental health, and to develop a website of resources that can be used by advisors and those within the wider ACUS and the industry to support the delivery of evidence-based micro interventions for farmer-specific mental health queries. So I just want to thank the department for the funding for this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomás. And the last project under this theme is from John Devine, University of Maynooth.
Thank you very much. So something a bit different, moving from the farm to the forest. So our project is Ancient Woodlands Ireland, and it will deliver a national inventory of ancient woodlands. It is a €1.2 million project, and it's funded by both the Department of Agriculture and the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and we thank them for their funding. So in the Irish context, ancient woodlands are areas that have remained wooded since at least the mid-17th century. And these are irreplaceable habitats of high biodiversity value. And they also provide multiple other ecosystem services, such as long-term carbon storage, and are often sites that have historical and cultural significance as well. Now, despite their importance, these are very rare features of the Irish landscape now, and there are major gaps in our understanding of their extent and their condition. So our project team includes Dr. Jessica Zimmerman and Dr. Stuart Green from Teagasc, Dr. Anna-Lee Mardy from Dundalk IT, myself, Professor Fiona Walsh, Dr. Helen Shaw, and Dr. Eamon Darcy at Maynooth University. We're taking a very multidisciplinary approach to identifying and mapping ancient woodlands in Ireland. So, for example, we're using machine learning approaches to extract woodland cover information from 19th century OS maps. We're also looking back at the archival sources of information on forest cover from the 17th century. We're applying paleoecological approaches to look at the pollen record in soil cores to reconstruct vegetation history, and also look at present-day indicators of ancient woodland status in the soil microbiome. We're also working with our partners, the Woodland Trust in Northern Ireland, to help raise awareness of ancient woodlands and their importance. So in line with the EU biodiversity strategy, information from this project can help protect ancient woodlands, but also it can provide data that will be very valuable in restoring forest habitats, which will be a key part of the proposed nature restoration law. And ultimately, the project will deliver an inventory of ancient woodlands, which is a key forest for nature goal in Ireland's strategy, Ireland's forest strategy to 2030. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So that concludes the 6 projects that came in under Team 3, which was smart, sustainable animal and plant production, health and welfare. It's a very broad theme, as you can see. It covered a lot of different areas. So we're now moving on to Theme 1 in the call, which was climate mitigation and adaptation. There were 4 successful projects under this theme, and the first of these will be presented by Sinead Waters from Teagasc.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Karl. I'd like to start by acknowledging the funding from DAFM and DAERA for this ambitious project. The acronym is MAGS, Methane Abatement in Grazing Systems, and this really builds on a previous project I coordinated called Methybate, where, and the Minister alluded to this earlier, where we identified successful feed additives and, I suppose, slurry and manure additives. What we want to do here in this project is to combine with the success of Green Breed, the breeding project led by my colleague Donna Berry, and really to develop and apply transformative genetic, dietary and manure management technologies to reduce methane emissions from Irish pasture-based beef and dairy production. And this is really, I suppose, building on Methybate and Green Breed and really implementing it on farm and acknowledging our pasture-based grazing systems. So what are our objectives? We want to develop slow release and bolus technology formulations. We can actually get our feed additives to work very successfully indoors, such as 3-NOP and oxidizing methane inhibitors, along with lipids and other additives and supplements. We now need to work with our collaborators in University of Galway to develop, and they're working on this already, slow release formulations of these additives and to combine them as well for effectiveness at pasture-based production systems. So in this project, we plan to test the addition of feed additives and also to combine with genomic breeding tools for low methane emissions. So we know that from ICBF, they have developed new genomic breeding tools for methane emissions. We want to validate those, particularly in grazing systems, and to combine them with the additives, because this challenge is huge. We know the challenge of methane is huge, so we need to really put all our tools together. We're also going to work with Paul Crossan in Teagasc Grange on the bioeconomic and life cycle modelling at the whole farm level and at national scale. And we're working with the EPA and Martin Heydon in that regard as well, and to contribute to national agri-GHG inventories. And finally, as the Minister alluded to, we also want to implement this to demonstrate the innovations through the Teagasc Signpost programme. We have a unique opportunity to do that in Teagasc. Our partners are the University of Galway, Vincent O'Flaherty, but myself in Teagasc Grange is Professor David Kenny and Dr. Paul Crossan, the ICBF with Ross Evans and Stephen Conroy, and with our partners in the north is the North-South Project, Omar Carbello and Chien Hai Yan, and also our two industry partners, Glasscore Bio and Moonsys. Thank you.
Thanks, Sinead. And next up, it's Paul Smith from Teagasc.
Thank you very much, Karl, and thank you very much to the Department of Agriculture for the invitation here today. My name is Paul Smith. I'm a researcher from Teagasc Grange, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our Beef Quest project. So as you know, the agricultural sector needs to reduce its emissions by 25% by 2030. And one of the key measures for reducing agriculture's greenhouse gas emissions, which has been identified through the Food Vision Report, the Climate Action Plan, as well as the Teagasc MAC, is reducing the age of slaughter of our beef cattle. So a target has been set to reduce the average age of slaughter from 26 to 22 months of age by 2030. Now, while blueprint systems have been developed by Teagasc and other colleagues, I suppose detailing how to finish beef cattle, unfortunately, on average, the average commercial beef farm is finishing cattle which are 6 months older, which can be done within a research setting. So as part of the Beef Quest project, what we want to do is try and provide a solution-orientated framework for reducing the finishing age of Irish beef cattle. And basically what we want to do is try and understand why beef farms aren't finishing their cattle at a similar level to what's been achieved within a research level. So it's a 4-year project which is led by Teagasc and has a budget of about €780,000 and is in collaboration with University College Dublin and ICBF. And then the main project objectives are firstly to characterise the lifetime live weight gain performance of the national beef herd. What we basically want to do with this part of this objective is to try and pinpoint the main period within the animal's lifetime across different categories of animals where animals aren't achieving their appropriate weight for age. After that, we want to try and go underneath the bonnet a little bit more and try and understand the main factors which are contributing to animals not reaching the average age of slaughter. And we want to basically quantify the effects of nutrition, animal health and on-farm environment on the finishing age of Irish beef cattle across contrast and production systems. Next, we want to look at investigating the effects of finishing beef cattle in the third grazing season, trying to finish those animals earlier, and looking at the effects that this has on feed efficiency, methane emissions, and carcass output. And then finally, just two last measures, we want to understand the sociological impacts, so understand what beef farmers' impacts or their, I suppose, willingness to implement measures on farm would be to looking at reducing age slaughter, and finally to model these impacts and see what the most effective measures are, and then ultimately formulate a roadmap for policymakers in the wider agricultural sector for reducing the average age slaughter. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. And next up is Ben Lahart from Teagasc.
Okay, so thanks, Karl, and thanks very much for having me talk here today. So I'd just like to acknowledge DAFM and DAERA for funding this project. So the title of this project is Enteric Methane Emissions from Pasture-based Ruminant Livestock, Country-Specific Mitigation and Emission Factors. And the rationale behind why we're doing this research is the emission factor, which is essentially the amount of methane assumed lost as a proportion of feed intake or gross energy, is an international default value within the national inventory. So it's not specific to Irish conditions, and it doesn't disaggregate different ruminant livestock categories. So it treats sheep, beef, dairy all the same. And the reason it does this is because we don't have, I suppose, country-specific granular data on these different livestock categories. So as part of the project, we aim to use the green feed to measure methane output of different ruminant livestock categories. First of all, we want to validate it against the respiration chamber. Once you understand, to measure on growing dairy heifers, dairy cows, as well as suckler cows, finishing animals, as well as growing replacement animals in the suckler herd, as well as sheep, hoggets, and as well as this to evaluate different dietary regimes on methane output, as well as genetic strategies to reduce methane. At the end of the project then, we'll have a large-scale database of methane emissions from dairy, beef and sheep, from which we can use to develop country-specific emission factors and move from our current Tier 2 reporting to a Tier 3 potentially, and have a more accurate baseline value for the amount of methane produced across the ruminant livestock sector. As well as this, we'll also evaluate the effect of nutritional regimes and genetics on methane output. So partners in the project are UCD, ICBF, Teagasc, and AFBI. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Finn. And the last project in this team is from Owen Fenton in Teagasc.
So hello everyone, I'm going to introduce the DTEC project, which is Geospatial Drainage Status Detection Mapping of Organic Rich Soils for National Inventory Reporting and Policy Support Needs in Ireland. I suppose the context of the project is Ireland developed a pathway to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 51% by 2030. And if we look at drained grasslands on peat soils, they represent a huge greenhouse gas emission of 9 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent per annum, in an area of 335,000 hectares. Now, if you look at all of those figures are actually national estimates at the moment. We need to refine these estimates and know in space and time where they exist. That, in effect, then will change our inventory of for peat soils. If you look at the picture, you can see a landscape, an agricultural landscape with different colours. The colours represent different soil types which have different emission factors. And at the moment, we don't know enough about where these soils are and what the water content of each of those soils are. The light soils there is a mineral soil, and you can see it's obvious the peat soils are darker in nature. And we're going to use lots of technology to look at those. So the objectives are to carry out geospatial mapping and validation of the drainage status using lots of different technologies, and then develop a tool. So when we have data, we feed it into the tool, and that tool can be updated in the inventory to reassess our emissions on an ongoing basis. Okay, expected benefits are by accurately quantifying drainage status of these soils, Ireland can adopt targeted strategies to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions on these soils, and therefore make informed policy decisions and that contribute to a greener future. It's a collaboration between Teagasc, my team in Teagasc, between Moorepark and Johnson Castle. We have Eve Daly from University of Galway, Owen McCarthy from NTU, and John Connolly from Trinity College Dublin. The total grant was just over 1.5 million with a contribution from the EPA. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that concludes Team 1, which was climate mitigation and adaptation. So we're now moving to theme 2 in the call, which was agri-environment, biodiversity and ecosystem services. And there were 4 successful projects here, the first of which will be presented by Daire O'hUallachain.
Thank you, Karl. So the Measures for Water project is a collaborative project between Teagasc, Johnson Castle and Moore Park, University College Cork and the Atlantic Technological University. The project will monitor and evaluate targeted mitigation approaches to improve water quality in Ireland. And as a brief background, we have ambitious targets for water quality under the Water Frameworks Directive. And it's incumbent on us all and all sectors to try and undertake significant activity to address these targets. So the overall aim of the project is to assess the effectiveness of targeted clusters of on-farm mitigation measures to protect and improve water quality. The project will work very closely with existing projects such as the Teagasc Agricultural Catchments Programme and the recently funded Water EIP, which is being led by LawPro and Teagasc. Through high temporal and spatial resolution data capture, we will assess the effectiveness of measures across 3 broad themes, looking at reduced sources of nutrients and sediments from agricultural landscapes, looking at measures to break the pathway between source and receptor, and then finally looking at measures looking at farm infrastructure, again aiming to reduce sources and pathways. The project will aim to determine the cost effectiveness of measures, and this can be used to help inform the design and implementation of potential future results-based approaches. We will explore farmer attitudes to the implementation of measures and identify barriers to uptake, for example. And then finally, we will disseminate and demonstrate activities to a wide range of stakeholders, incorporating policy, research, knowledge transfer and practice. I'd like to acknowledge funding by the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine and the EPA. Míle buíochas.
Thanks, Sarah. And the next presenter is Rossana Henriques from UCC.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present my project. It's called Assessing the Impact of Climate Change on Clover-Pollinator Interaction in Irish Grasslands. So the name of our project, the short name would be ARID. And basically, it is a collaboration within UCC between myself, my colleague Fidelma Butler and Michelle MacHugh, that is in the Department of Geography. Me and Fidelma, we are both at the School of Biological, Environmental and Earth Sciences in UCC. Sorry. So it is actually a short project because we consider this to be a pilot study to address how clover and pollinator interactions are important. So this project has 5 objectives. Sorry, because this was all in the right space before, but basically what we want to do is we want to assess the fact that farmers are already asked to incorporate clover in their farms, but they are doing that just for nitrogen uses. However, what we want to show here is that we could maybe have a potential biodiversity ecosystem service there on the farm by having clover incorporated in the farms. So what we want to do is to assess this in 3 different regions in Ireland, and we want to see how not only clover and pollinator interactions occur, what are the environmental drivers behind these interactions, and then we want to do a more detailed study in year 2 of the project where we will focus on the southwest region. We will address how flowering time is regulated, and we are going to use all this data to construct inference models. So what we want to see is what abiotic drivers will be critical for these clover-pollinator interactions. And at the end of the project, we want to give farmers some idea of how incorporating clover in their farmlands could be important for biodiversity, even though that was not the main aim of incorporating clover. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rossana. Next up, it's Dheeraj Rathore from Teagasc.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about about my project jointly funded by DFM and DAERA on breeding ash for dieback disease tolerance in Ireland. Advancing ash research is crucial to understand diseases like ash dieback and to create resilient forests. This all-island cooperation is a significant aspect of the project, and it builds on the previous relationships and research that puts us at the forefront in Europe for in context of research when it comes to breed ash for dieback disease tolerance. The overall aim of the project is to preserve and revive ash as a commercial and biodiversity resource. And to achieve this aim, the project will work on 4 well-defined pillars. Pillar 1 is ASHCOM, which is led by Forest Service DFM Brian Clifford for knowledge transfer. It will develop a communication strategy to engage different stakeholders, forestry practitioners, hurley makers, public, and the scientific community. Pillar 2 is ASHGen, led by myself in Chagask, and supported by FB PIs. This will focus on identifying tolerant ash to create a resilient ash breeding stock for future conservation and restoration. Pillar 3 is ASHPath, which will investigate the mechanisms of disease infection by invasive fungal pathogen Hymenoscypus fraxineus in ash. And finally, the pillar 4, Ash Silva, led by Dr. Ian Short in Chagask, will investigate will establish the field trials to study the effect of admixed tree species on ash instead of monoculture for future planting. Combined Ash for Future project brings multidisciplinary teams from Chagask, FB, UCD in academia, and Koilche, OPW, Nanso Hardy, and FGRT in the industry sector to work together, supporting research and development in breeding ash for future restoration. The support from DFM and DAERA are providing is not only vital for protecting Ireland's forest, but will pave the way for innovative strategies ensuring a resilient future for our forests. Thank you.
Thank you, Dheeraj. And then the last project in this theme it will be presented by Nicholas Brereton on behalf of the project coordinator, Karl Ing from UCD.
Hi there. So thank you to DAFM and DAERA for the funding. And so this project is biostimulants for grass production. And really what we're trying to do is meet the challenges of reducing chemical inputs that are present in the Irish Climate Change Action Plan, the EU Farm to Fork Strategy, and European Green Deal. And so our aim here is to develop new elite grass germplasm to reduce nitrogen inputs, as well as looking at complementarity between multi-species swards. On the biostimulant side, we're looking at trying to capture bio-based products, including algal biostimulants, bacteria, including nitrogen fixers and phosphorus mobilizers, so plant growth promoting bacteria, and dual function endophytes, including fungal endophytes, which can also serve as biopesticides to protect the plants from pathogens. And we're using assembly-based metagenomics and microbiome technologies, really advanced genomics approaches developed with collaborators in the space sciences, to really try and capture that complexity of the microbiome. And when we have that information and we try and develop those solutions, we're going to talk and work with modelers to capture the impact on soil health and greenhouse gas emissions, and conduct life cycle assessment, and to really be able to communicate the findings to policymakers and the public. The team is diverse, and so there are research from UCD, MTU, AFBI, and Chagask, so across Ireland. Ultimately, we want to provide farmers with elite germplasm and sustainable bio-based alternatives to chemical fertilizers and pesticides, in the hope that we can protect the Irish environment moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. So that brings to an end the theme 2 projects. So we'll now move on to the 4th theme of the 5 themes in the call. This one was on bioeconomy, rural economy, agri-digitalization and data. There were 2 successful projects here. And the first of these is being presented today by Luke van der Wielen from the University of Limerick on behalf of the project coordinator, Control of Listeria, University of Galway.
Thank you very much, Karl. First off, apologies of Karl, who has some health issues, can't be here today. My name is Luc van der Wielen, Bernal Institute, University of Limerick. The project BioValue is about the scale and scope of bioeconomy and focus on the economy side of the house. For the traditional sectors, for which we know a lot, but particularly also for emerging new innovative sectors that could be in line with the traditional sectors, like alternative proteins, cultured meat for the current agro-food business, but also for those that are emerging and would require bioeconomy inputs, like sustainable aviation fuel, circularity of materials. It builds on the bioeconomy input-output models that are used and calibrated for the last 20 years and inform bioeconomy strategies. What we will do is bring data modeling, but also industrial information as far as it exists already for the innovative sectors together, depending on their technology readiness level, and integrate that into various scenario analysis. So it builds on a diverse team of traditional economists, traditional folks in the sector, and folks like myself who are from fields outside of traditional process engineering and so on. Deliverables are a model that can be used for the scaling and scoping of scenarios in the wider bioeconomy, obviously a number of scientific papers, and also policy advice. And for that we work, among others, with the new task force on sustainable aviation fuel of the Department of Transport, the existing task force of the Shannon Estuary, the economic task force that is in place across sectors, all others that are working on renewables like offshore renewable energy, and as manifested in the hydrogen sector. So there's a significant focus on outreach. All partners are shown here, and again, apologies of Karl who leads this. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second and last project in this theme is being presented today by Patrick Murray from the Technological University Shannon.
So, good morning, and I'd like to acknowledge DAFM for the funding for the consortium to deliver this project. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Lena Madden, who's in the audience, who will be a key implementation person in delivering on the outputs. So the partners are Dr. John Culreevy from eTechnology Ireland, who's also in the audience, I see, Professor Rajesh Tiwari from Teagasc, Professor James Ling from UCD, and Dr. Alan O'Riordan from Tyndall. This is an industry-directed research project, so we have a number of industry partners: Ashburn Meat Processors, Keepack, Dawn Meats, Liffey Meats, MyGug, Arena Fuels, the Loophead Together Group, and the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation at Lachine. And our project is around circular bovine and ovine co-product valorization. On a global scale, this is a circular bioprocess in its entirety. And at the end of the project, we do hope to deliver and develop an upscale bovine and ovine co-product valorization set of protocols to at least 1,000 litres, to test the value-added co-products for their purpose suitability, to valorize and purify factory wastewater and any other effluent from the circular bioprocesses, to optimize and upscale waste to energy processes during the entire circular process itself, and to, at the end of the project, to deliver and demonstrate a fully assessed circular bioprocess at scale, ready for implementation by our industry partners. So I thank you all for your attention.
Thanks, Patrick. So the final theme, theme 5, was safe, nutritious, sustainable food processing and consumption. There were 4 successful projects here, and the first of these is being presented by Eimear Gallagher in Teagasc.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eimear Gallagher, and the project that was funded was entitled Gluten-free Innovation for Novel Sustainable Food Systems from Farm Gate to Consumer Plate, and the acronym is G3IE. So this project is really combining food innovation with crop science, in particular Irish crop science. So for the food innovation aspect, we're focusing on gluten-free foods and enhanced gluten-free food innovation. Ireland currently has the highest incidence of celiac disease in the world, and it's estimated that approximately 450,000 people in Ireland are either diagnosed with celiac disease or a gluten intolerance. And then there's a further cohort of consumers that choose to shop gluten-free as well. So approximately 1 in 5 people shop for gluten-free foods. Now, it's been well documented by the Celiac Society of Ireland that gluten-free foods are not normally enhanced with fibres, iron, micronutrients. So therefore the gluten-free diet is usually seen as nutrient deficient. So that's where we will then marry with crop science, where we're going to take Irish grown fava beans, which are high yielding crops. They're good for the environment. They're very nutritious. They have high levels of soluble fibre, high protein levels, high in micronutrients and iron. So we will take Irish fava beans and process them, into gluten-free ingredients. So the whole project is comprised of crop scientists who will initially crop fava beans with a low amount of anti-nutrients. Then it will move on to food innovation, where we will take these fava beans and process them into nutritious food ingredients, and we'll formulate gluten-free breads and gluten-free breakfast cereals with optimal quality, optimal sensory and optimal nutrition. These products will then move to gut research, where we will look at the digestion properties using a simulated celiac gut barrier. So we'll be able to see the benefits of using Irish fava beans in gluten-free products. And then our social scientists in UCD will take a holistic view of the project to look at the life cycle assessment and the impacts of the society, the economy, and all of the processes on the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eimear. Next up is Olivia McCullough from Teagasc.
Thank you, Karl. Good morning, everyone. I want to introduce you to our project, which is called Uplift, or Uncovering Alternative Protein Potential via Fermentation Technology. We know that plant-based proteins will form a very important part of any sustainable food system, but we also know that food producers face a number of challenges with regard to the production of these products, issues with taste, texture, colour, nutrition, formulation, and a lack of sustainability credentials, in fact, when a lot of consumers would think that these products are more sustainable. So to create the next generation of alternative protein foods, we have identified fermentation, which is harnessing microorganisms to primarily preserve food, but to impart characteristics such as flavour and texture and health benefits to the foods as well, as a key technology to address this challenge. And we have a lot of history of working in fermentation in dairy, and we want to apply that to the plant-based proteins. So the main objectives of Uplift are as follows. We will create a new scientific knowledge related to the use of fermentation as a processing tool by developing innovative methods for bioprocessing of Irish plant-based proteins, peas, fava beans, lupin, etc., through knowledge-based microbe selection. We will then apply these plant protein fermentates as ingredients in the development of prototype food products, and then examine the impact of fermentation on the taste, texture, nutritive and health promoting properties of the generated foods. And of course, then we have to look at the sustainability credentials associated with those products as well. This project is being led by Teagasc, but we have very important collaborators on the project. University College Cork, and the lead PI there is Dr. Tom O'Callaghan, who's with us today, and from Technological University of Dublin with Dr. Catherine Barry-Ryan, who sends her apologies she couldn't be with us today. The project is just north of 1 million, and we thank DAF for the funding for this project, and thank you for your attention.
And next up, a third of the 4 projects is from Breach McNulty, UCD.
Thanks, Karl. So along with my colleagues, Professor John Kearney in TU Dublin, Dr. Jeanette Walton and Dr. Laura Hugh in MTU, we're delighted with DAFM for funding this project, which is the National Preschool Nutrition Survey 2. So the main objective of this project, as you can see, is to look at the other end, to look at food consumption. So it's to establish a nationally representative database of food consumption in preschool children, so this particular vulnerable group. And as the title would suggest, it's the second project that we've done in this particular group or population. So it was done over 14 years ago, so the data now needs to be updated, and it will complement data that we've more recently collected on our children, our adults and our adolescents. And that data will create a database which will then help address both nutrition and food safety issues, and also in terms of the development and implementation of public health policy, food safety risk assessment and the needs of the food industry. And we do that by collecting data in terms of the food consumption and looking at the compliance with dietary recommendations and food recommendations. And also we will look at weight status of this particular group and look at the prevalence of overweight and obesity. We will look at questionnaire data and biofluid data and look at health, lifestyle patterns, parental feeding styles and determinants of eating behaviours. And also in using all that data, we hope to look at the foods and the food groups that will contribute for this particular group safe, nutritious, acceptable and sustainable diets. Thank you.
Thank you, Bríd. And our final presenter is Kaye Burgess from Teagasc.
Thank you very much. And first of all, many thanks to DAFM for funding DETCON, a project which is focused on the detection and characterization and control of Listeria monocytogenes in food production. The project is a collaboration between 6 RPOs, Teagasc, University of Galway, University of Limerick, University College Cork, Munster Technological University and University College Dublin. First, a little background to the project and its importance. Listeria monocytogenes is a bacterium that causes food poisoning, and of the foodborne pathogens, it has among the highest rates of mortality. It is a particular risk for the most vulnerable in society, such as the young, the old and immunocompromised. From a food industry perspective, it is a major concern because firstly, contamination of products can easily occur due to its natural presence in the environment and also its tolerance to stresses, as well as the significant public health implications from a listeriosis outbreak. There are economic and reputational damage which can occur even in the event of something such as a recall. Individual outbreaks of listeriosis worldwide have cost over $200 million. And in Ireland, we see recalls arising from listeria contamination quite routinely. DETCON builds on collaborative links between our partners. We're building on a strong history of research on this pathogen. We know that not all Listeria monocytogenes isolates behave in the same way, and we know that they do not cause the same severity of illness. So we need to ensure that the tools that we employ are able to detect and distinguish between these different types, and also that the controls that we use are designed to target the most robust of strains. We will use a diverse strain set from different backgrounds to work in 3 main areas. Characterizing the strains under stress and in different foods to be able to model their behavior in industry. We will look at also developing more sensitive and distinguishing detection tools and the development of more effective control options which can be employed in the food industry, all built around a robust knowledge transfer and dissemination platform. DETCON will ultimately contribute to underpinning microbial food safety in Irish food production, but also have impacts such as minimising food loss and waste due to reducing product contamination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kaye, and many thanks to you all. I know it's definitely not easy to summarise some of these projects in 2 minutes. Some of them are very large, as you've seen by the funding amounts and the number of collaborating institutes involved. So I really want to thank you for that. I think it gives a very good overview, a high-level overview of the breadth of the research being funded. This is the first batch of projects being funded from the call. There will be another batch of projects that will be funded, and that will be announced at the end, towards the end of Q1 next year. So I'm going to now ask Minister of State with special responsibility for research and innovation, Martin Heydon, to offer some closing remarks before we conclude.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and let me start by congratulating and thanking each of the presenters here this morning. It felt like a kind of speed dating there. Everyone had 2 minutes to tell us a bit about their project, and a bit like the Rose Tree, everyone here today is a winner, so that's a really good thing. But no, congratulations to each and every one of you, and that taster just gives us a really good sense of the breadth of topics that we in the Department of Agriculture, with DAERA, with EPA, with other partners are funding, are really proud to fund, because it just shows the solutions to so many of the challenges we face, and the really important work that you and your teams are taking on, the collaboration, which is so important, and it is a really exciting time to be here and to be part of this launch, and I'm really enthused and look forward to seeing how all of you progress with these individual projects. You know, our Thematic Call 2023, as I've come to expect, it was extremely competitive. 120 eligible applications received, so well done to each and every one of you who have come through a rigorous evaluation process and subsequent selection as a successful project. And as the saying goes, if you're not in, you can't win. So you had to put together the programs, the ideas, and flesh them out, and I know the level of work that went into doing that to get to this point here today. Listening to you describe your projects, I'm really struck by the breadth of the research that will take place, how relevant and closely aligned it is with some of the fundamental challenges that are facing our sector, whether that's water quality, whether it's climate change, animal welfare and health, TB, and much more. Almost half of the funding is allocated to climate and the environmental projects, and it underscores this sector's commitment to delivering real and tangible progress in this area. We know the scale and the urgency of the climate challenge that we face. Last year, climate research accounted for 43% of our total budget, and the climate-related research we fund means that my department now accounts for over 1/5 or 20% of total national climate research support. In funding these projects, there is an expectation that the scientific knowledge and outputs arising from them will be implementable at farm or industry level, and we cannot have the next phase of solutions, technologies or science-based policies sitting on the shelf. The work you do will help to deliver the Climate Action Plan targets to reduce emissions from the agriculture sector by 25% by 2030, while ensuring the sector remains productive and competitive. In this round of funding, I also see projects that seek to develop the research to underpin new value chains, new business models, and new economic opportunities. And we always talk about sustainability for the agri sector as a three-legged stool. You can't have the environmental sustainability without that economic sustainability and the social sustainability as well that goes with that. So whether that's biostimulants for grassland, development of the bioeconomy, making greater use and extracting more value from byproducts of meat processing, gluten-free food, and more besides, I'm also struck by the strong public good aspects coming through the research, with projects around food safety, preschool nutrition, as we've heard, protecting our ancient woodlands, which is fascinating to know. I didn't realise you have to go back to 1700s, and if it's 1800s, you're not ancient, but if you're 1700s, you are. It's something I've learned this morning. And obviously improving biodiversity in those pieces there too. Touching on my other role as Minister of State with special responsibility for farm safety, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the project being led by Tomás Russell and the team at UCD, South East Technical University, and on firm ground to develop evidence-based interventions to enhance farmer mental health. Farming can be isolating and a stressful occupation. I know, I was a farmer. I found it very lonely, so I decided to go into politics. Yeah, so I love being surrounded by people. But in all seriousness, you know, you can have too much time with your own thoughts, sitting in a tractor on your own all day, not getting that social interaction that many of us do working in teams, as you all do. You go into your labs, you go into your work settings every day, you work with different people. If you're a farmer, you're working on your own, and it is a big challenge. Throw in all the stresses that go with producing food and all the work that a farmer does. So therefore, I welcome the project plan of developing interventions to support farmers with skills that build resilience to help them cope with the farm stress and that uncertainty. And I'm proud that my department is in a position to fund important research such as this. Looking across the 20 projects and hearing from the coordinators here this morning, it is clear that the scientific ambition is high, but it is also evident that we have some of the best scientific minds working in complex areas. It's something that the broader agri-food, forest and bioeconomy sector should be really, really proud of. Too often when I'm on national media, you know, and I am obviously when I'm there defending the sector, listeners are presented with binary choices. Everything is black or white. There's this really simple thing to do over here, and what we're doing at the minute is just really bad. And obviously that's not the case. As you all know, the nuance that these are really complex areas with trade-offs, with nuances, and with competing demands. And we have to work through all of them, and you're acutely aware of that. The work you do will be vital to communicate the steps being taken by the sector to improve the sustainability. And I would love if the general public and more farmers even, but even the consumer, could see the science and the innovation behind our food production systems, behind our agri-food systems, behind our efforts to improve our biodiversity and all the rest in what we do. Because everybody from the farmer to our food companies to research sector are really, really invested on doing what we do, which we do at a world-class level, and doing it even better. And sometimes that's not the story that's painted. So I'd say to each and every one of you, you all have an opportunity to tell your story, and never miss the opportunity to do that. Any opportunity you get to tell that story to the broader public about the science and the innovation and what's happening here and the ambition that we all share across this sector, never miss that opportunity, because sometimes I think our consumers probably feel it's a hopeless cause because they're not told about the good work that happens here. I have that responsibility in my role, obviously, but we all share it and never miss the opportunity to do that. In total, there are 16 different institutions receiving funding across the island of Ireland, with most of the projects being collaborative and cross-disciplinary. This was a key objective of the research call because collaboration across institutions and disciplines is critical to ensuring we make the best use of human and physical research expertise and resources that exist across the country, which my department has been investing in now for many years. We are now reaching a point where the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine has invested over €250 million in research funding since 2010. We have seen numerous times that this support has enabled you to reach beyond Ireland, to be coordinators and partners in European research initiatives. Last year alone, Ireland secured almost €50 million of Horizon Europe funding in the area of food and agricultural area. The €24.2 million investment being announced today will hopefully enable many of you to be successful in winning further European research awards into the future also. Next year, we'll see the rollout of the Horizon Europe partnerships, which include agroecology, sustainable food systems, and animal health and welfare. My department will commit funding to enable Irish researchers to be involved in or lead consortia under these partnership calls, and we look forward to working with you all in this area in 2024. And one final point I want to touch on is the importance we place on the value of education and training of postgraduate students involved in these projects. Minister McConalogue earlier gave the numbers of students that will be involved in these projects, which is indicative of the extent of the role that this plays in our support of research. As a further demonstration of this, I recently sanctioned an increase in the stipend for postgraduate students on foot of the report of the National Review for PhD Supports, which was published earlier this year. This will see our stipend for postgraduates rise from €19,000 to €25,000 per annum from January to help attract and retain high caliber candidates for these critically important positions. In conclusion, my final message today is that we are in a time of increasing uncertainty and challenges. Further strengthening the capacity and capability of Ireland's national agri-food, forest and bioeconomy research base is critical to underpinning its future competitiveness and sustainability. So I firmly believe that the pathway to a sustainable, future-proof sector is through the adoption of greater innovation. There is more science and innovation in our food system than ever before, and the general consumer, as I said earlier, will be blown away if they had seen it. Congratulations to each and every one of you again on your success to get to this point in securing the funding. Now the real work begins, and I look forward to seeing and hearing the fruits of all of your labours in the months and years ahead. And it just leaves me to wish you all, you know, and your research teams every success in the future, a very happy Christmas and all the best for New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That brings the proceedings more or less to a close. I have some final remarks just to wrap things up. A sincere thanks to Minister McConalogue and Minister Heydon for coming today. I think their presence, it's a really strong endorsement of the support that there is in the department for the research ecosystem around agriculture, food, forestry and the bioeconomy. And so just to acknowledge their presence, I think that's important. I also want to reiterate my thanks to the co-funders to DAERA Northern Ireland, to the Environmental Protection Agency and to the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Thanks in particular to the project coordinators for their presentations, and their collaborators are also here, many of them in the room today. So I'm glad that you could make it and to join us. And that we also have a number of directors of research and vice presidents for research from some of the 16 institutes getting funding, and I also want to acknowledge your presence. I want to thank the online audience. In an effort to bring this good news, as the Minister said, to the people, this is the first time we've live streamed this event. So I want to thank everybody that's tuned in online for joining with us. Full details of the projects will be up on our website later today. So if anyone wants to find out more detail, that's where you'll find them. And last but not least, I would just want to acknowledge my own team. There's been a huge amount of work in getting this call over the line this year, from designing the call right back at the start of the year to answering all the queries, overseeing the evaluations of the projects, conducting the contract negotiations over the last several weeks and months, and indeed in today's event. So I want to thank the team for their work in that, and also to our colleagues in the Press and Communications Division. Thank you for your contribution as well. So that marks the end of the event. I also want to wish the coordinators the very best. We will work with you over the coming years to make sure that the projects deliver what they're contracted to do, and I'm sure that the outputs will be of huge relevance to many stakeholders across the sector.